Hey, today we're doing another algorithm problem. It is LeetCode problem. Most of these are, but not all of them are. So just because it says LeetCode somewhere doesn't mean it's a LeetCode problem. This one is called valid palindrome and it's number 125 on LeetCode. And it is given a string, determine if it is a palindrome, considering only alphanumeric characters and ignoring cases. For the purpose of this problem, we define empty string as valid palindrome. Okay. Input, a man, a plan, a canal, Panama is actually true. So one thing we notice right away is that punctuation is ignored. So that makes it just a pinch more difficult. And example 2, race a car. This one is not a palindrome because there is, for this to be a palindrome, the A cannot be there. But it does seem to ignore spaces, pretty much anything else. Just thinking about how I would approach this, basically we're going to remove anything except alphanumeric characters. So we can do this by either creating an alphabet and referencing that, use includes, and if it's true in the alphabet example that you give, then you can return, or rather make a new string or say, this is part of the string that should be compared for palindrome. So there's basically two steps. One is literally comparing that string itself to see if it's the same in reverse, and the other is to cut out all the extra punctuation and stuff. It says alphanumeric, so I'm not sure if numbers count. Yeah, that's a good question, but let's just try it out. Empty strings are also a valid palindrome, so that means what we can do is assume everything is valid until we find a condition where it's false. So we'll have a return true at the bottom and then a loop that will check every character to its, character on the opposite side of the word. And if it's ever false, return false. If it gets through the loop, then return true. So two parts. I'll do the first part now. And potentially I could even make it a helper function. In fact, let's do that. So const remove punctuation. Let's call it that. Equals function string. So yeah, just trying to keep things nice and clean. All right, so how do we remove punctuation? Well, one way we can do it is we can say let result string or removed punc. Let's just call it removed. I like being explicit, so equal started at empty, so we're building this string, and then we'll do a for loop. We can't do for each because it's a string. Let I equals 0, I is less than string.length. Oh, in LeetCode, this will be represented as S. I changed it to string because, again, I don't like non-explicit variables, especially single letter, with the exception of I and J and K for those. But again, maybe even those I should be more explicit. Plus equals 1. So here what we're doing is we're just checking to see if, I believe it's 97 through 122. I just happen to have that memorized. So if string at I dot char code at 0 is less than, or I should say greater than or equal to 97 and string, you know what, in order so that I don't have to do this, let's just do this. Const char code equals string at I dot char code at 0. So now we can do char code, and char code is, so I'll explain this in a second. Greater than or equal to, greater than or equal to 97, less than or equal to 122. So what char code at does is basically it takes a string and then you pass in, so here it takes the string, right? Which is a single character string in this case because I'm specifying the position I. And then charcode at is specifying the index within that string. So I could have just passed in the entire string and then said charcode at I. That would have worked too. So if that makes sense, I could just pass in the entire string like this and just say charcode at I, and that would still be the charcode of the string that I am selecting right now. So if the string was racecar, then the first character would be R, and so this would be the index within the entire string. Let's say it was racecar, then this would be R. But if I specify, you know, just that string, then that would just be R. And R at position 0 is still R. So it's the same thing. In fact, let me just do it this way. I feel like after I've done it, it's slightly more clear to do it this way. So yeah, and then charcode ats are like this entire thing that pre-exists in JavaScript, and I happen to know that 97 through 122 is the lowercase alphabetic letters A through Z. So, you know, I didn't have to look it up, and normally you would. Or another thing you can do there is you can just say const alphabet equals, and then literally do A, B, C, D, E, F, blah, 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 all the way to the end, and then just reference that string. So say, you know, if alphabet.contains, and then the string you're looking for, the character, and if it's true, then do this. If it's not, then don't add it to the remove punctuation string. So I tried to explain that quickly, but long story short, if the char code is above 97 and it's below 122 or equal, then it is an alphanumeric character, and so we are removed punctuation plus equals that char, which is going to be string at I. So we're actually adding the string character itself, not the char code, which is why we didn't use char code. Yeah, hopefully this makes sense. And if it's not, we do nothing, so that's fine. We don't need an else. Else we do nothing. Return removed punctuation. Yeah, so that should be the helper function. In fact, we could even test it. Let's do that. So test const test string equals racecar. Okay, and let's add space and an exclamation mark. Okay, so console dot, nice correction. That was my text editor there. And we'll do remove punctuation, and we'll pass in test string. So what we should get is the empty string. Not the empty string, the string without the space and the exclamation mark, and we do. So it works, and now we can use that and say, so we'll do the isPalindrome portion, which is simply a for loop. And this is returning a Boolean, right? It says on line 22 returns a Boolean. So what we do is for loop through the string, let I equals 0, I is less than string.length divided by 2. And the reason we do that is because we don't need to check. Well, basically at each, so like at 0, we're comparing it to the last character, and then at 1, we'll compare it to last character minus 1, so minus I. And then as I increases, we'll keep subtracting that from the end until it reaches the middle, and that's pretty much it. And we don't have to compare the middle itself if it's an odd number, so it's pretty simple. You just divide by 2. So let's say the length is 7, right? Let's say it's race car, literally. Then, yeah, just to help visualize here, and I'm doing it in caps. But yeah, race car. So, I mean, this happens to be a palindrome, we know that, but length is 7, so half of that is 3.5. And if we do it until it's less than 3.5, that means it'll go to 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. It's even checking E itself against itself, which it doesn't really have to do. So you could even say .floor if you really wanted to. So Math.floor, because it doesn't need to compare itself. And just to make sure that's okay, let's check if the length is 6. So let's say the R wasn't there, the length would be 6, half of that would be 3. Again, it checks plenty. 3 minus 1 would be 2. Oh wait, why am I subtracting? Yeah, you don't have to subtract. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Again, it's checking too many characters, so you might even be okay with, instead of flooring, just subtract 1. In fact, I think that's valid, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. -1. And the reason we do -1 is because we don't have to check the middle character. So now all we do is a false condition and then a true. Return true, and then this loop will test for all possible false conditions. So if it gets through the loop, then it's true. If it doesn't get through the loop and never hits a return false, then it's true. Otherwise, it's false. So now all we do is if, and I think it said to ignore case. Just going to check that. Ignoring cases. So let's just basically make them all lowercase because the chart code that I did was for lowercase. And there might be some minor adjustment we have to do to accommodate cases because I think I wasn't really thinking about that until now. So anyway, we will do string, which now is going to be the remove punctuation one, at I equal to, or not equal to, sorry, is not equal to, and then we just do the final string. So string at string.length -1, because that's the last character, and then -I. So we start the last position, and then every time we subtract I. Initially that's 0, so we check the ends, and then as it becomes 1, it'll subtract an additional 1, right? It'll subtract whatever it goes up by. So this will compare its opposite side until it reaches the middle. Hopefully that made sense. So then return false. And for the most part, this should do it. So now if we do console.log isPalindrome and pass in test string. Okay, so one thing I clearly forgot to do is run remove punctuation. So we can just do that here. Const removed equals, and then we'll run remove punctuation, and we'll pass in. So we're getting the string with all the extra characters in it. We'll make it a removed version. We'll go through that, which means I have to update all of these. Was defined before, what was used before it's defined. That's fine because this is a function, so it'll get hoisted. I've read that it's actually good practice for the main function to be at the top and then the helper to be underneath. Helpers. So that's just what I've heard. I don't know if that's always the case. Of course, that's not a space there. Sorry. And yeah, so this should work. Let's see if I set up the test correctly. Remove punctuation. No, we're running isPalindrome with the test string. Yeah, and it should remove the punctuation and return true. Yes, which it is, because if you ignore that, then it would be true. And if we add a extra R, it should be false. So it does work. Just to kind of accommodate those cases, we could just do this .to lowercase. Just compare everything as if they're lowercase, and that would ignore the punctuation, right? So blah 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 .to lowercase. So now every single string that we check is going to be in lowercase. Oh, that's just the linter saying it's too long, so I should divide this up into more than one line. I'm not going to do that in this particular video, but, and yeah, I know my face will probably be on the bottom right. I'll make sure it doesn't get too much in the way during editing. And yeah, that should be a reasonable solution. 97 through 122, I believe these are lowercase, so do I need to do anything in addition? I don't think so, because this will just... Okay, so maybe I should make this to lowercase, maybe? Let me just think about that. Yeah, because the pass-in string could potentially be capital, right? So what we should do is string.chartcode at I. So yeah, let's do this instead. String I dot to lowercase, right? Because we need it to be lowercase before, and then check it at position 0. So now we're checking a very specific string I that character, lowercase it, and then check for the char code of the first index of that character. So it's basically going to be always lowercase now, and I don't have to do these. Right. And then if it is, then add it to the removed punctuation string. I could add it as lowercase and then never have to check that here, or I could check it here. Let's just do it here. Dot to lowercase. All right, so by doing that, I don't need these here, which gets rid of that 100 character line is too long problem. Again, that's not as big a deal, but yeah, let's just go ahead and test. So one of these is now, and this can also be, yeah, so this should work. In other words, it should be true. It is. So yeah, it works. And let's see what happens if we do this. It should be false, right? So it works. And that is how you solve for isValid palindrome. So this is LeetCode number 125. Like I said, let me know if you have any questions, comments, constructive criticism. Also, thinking of not doing just algorithm problems. Other types of videos that I'm thinking about doing is about the whole coding journey from beginner till job ready, or even getting a job. If you guys have any comments about like what you'd like to see other than just algorithm videos, or specific algorithms even if you'd like, look forward to those, and I'll see you next time.